Welcome back. Dark recaps here. Antipsychotic medicines are often used to treat a wide range of mental disorders, including schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression disorder, and clinical anxiety disorders. They're generally prescribed to manage and calm symptoms of delusions or hallucinations. One of my subscribers sent me her own account of what can happen if at any point one forgets to take their antipsychotic drugs. Let's begin. It was around 5 p.m. on a cold, January Saturday. It was getting dark, but there was still some daylight left. I had finished all my chores at the house, so I thought it would be a good idea to go out and get some exercise. I got into my jogging clothes and grabbed my headphones. It would usually take me around an hour to get to my destination, before I would turn around to jog back home. I thought about taking a different route this time, which I knew would give me a shortcut, given the time of day. The only issue was that I hadn't jogged that way before. The roadway down there had some creepy-looking abandoned factories and buildings and was just eerie-looking altogether. I always avoided it. It was getting dark and I thought twice about taking the shortcut route. But I thought since it was just around the corner and I had little daylight left, taking that route would save me around 15 minutes. So I started jogging along, listening to whatever music came up on shuffle. I could feel that I was running out of breath more than usual, which was odd. I decided to stop and have a sip of water. I was about to pick up my water bottle when I saw a figure in the distance. I was a little creeped out, but nothing serious. I waited for whatever it was to pass, thinking that it might just be some kids playing a trick on me or something. As soon as the figure got closer, I could tell it was an adult-sized man jogging too. I felt a sigh of relief. What made the situation spooky was a light fog and the fact that the whole road was eerie. I looked around to check my surroundings, and the man was gone. I continued to jog, reaching that old abandoned factory I was always creeped out by. The fog covered everything and made me feel uncomfortable, like somebody was watching me. As I was jogging, I was looking at the factory, thinking how creepy it was. The buildings around were dark, dilapidated, and crumbling. There were vines growing up the side, and they seemed to have a layer of moss or something on them. It was eerily silent too. As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I could make out some figures moving inside the buildings. Goosebumps hit me. I stopped jogging and looked behind me. I was alone on the sidewalk. It looked like nobody was anywhere near me. I could make out the figures moving inside one of the buildings. I kept looking over my shoulder. I was not feeling comfortable. The unsettling part about the whole situation was that I couldn't tell if the figures in the building were people or animals or something else for that matter. I kept trying to convince myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Sighing, I decided to keep jogging. As soon as I was a good distance away from the factory, something made me stop and turn around. I saw the same figures in one of the other rundown buildings. I watched them for a few seconds, trying to determine what they were and what they were doing, before I could convince myself once more that it was just my imagination. That was before I heard a high-pitched scream coming from inside one of the buildings, like a girl's scream. I became scared and confused. 2 different buildings, mystery figures, and now a scream. Goosebumps hit me. I stopped jogging and looked behind me. I was alone on the sidewalk. It looked like nobody was anywhere near me. I could make out the figures moving inside one of the buildings. I kept looking over my shoulder. I was not feeling comfortable. The unsettling part about the whole situation was that I couldn't tell if the figures in the building were people or animals or something else for that matter. I kept trying to convince myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Sighing, I decided to keep jogging. As soon as I was a good distance away from the factory, something made me stop and turn around. I saw the same figures in one of the other rundown buildings. I watched them for a few seconds, trying to determine what they were and what they were doing, before I could convince myself once more that it was just my imagination. That was before I heard a high-pitched scream coming from inside one of the buildings, like a girl's scream. I became scared and confused. 2 different buildings, same mystery figures, and now a scream. My heart was pounding in my chest and my throat became dry. I became aware of a cold sweat on my forehead. The sound of the scream had shaken me to the core and I felt paralyzed and frozen in place. I started jogging again, looking over my shoulder and trying not to look at the building with the mystery figures. Once more, I turned around and heard that same girl's scream coming from behind me, this time not so far away. My heart started pounding so hard that I thought it was going to burst out of my chest. I was filled with horror, fear, and terror. I couldn't turn around. All I could do was run away as fast as I could, in the direction of my home. The sound of the girl gradually faded into the distance, like the girl was being gradually pulled away from me. What is it? I thought to myself as I ran back home. My breath had become short and quick and my heart was beating furiously in my chest. I finally reached my home and stepped inside, letting out a sigh of relief. I couldn't tell if that girl was still following me or not. All I knew is that the fear that had taken over my mind was slowly fading away and I began to feel better. I sat down on the floor and started crying out of fear. Suddenly my phone rang. Hello? I answered quickly just in case it was an emergency. Nobody talked for a second. All I heard was weird crackling noises. I was confused as to who it was and what was going on. Hello? Who is this? I asked frantically. Suddenly the noise stopped and all I could hear was soft breathing before the call dropped. I was stunned by a knock on the front door. I felt my heart race in fear again. I slowly walked over to the front door and slowly opened it up. It was a very familiar face standing there with a huge smile. "Hi, Mom," I said, relieved. She smiled back at me as she came into the house and wrapped me in a hug. "Hi. How have you been?" I could tell she was happy to see me. "Good, and getting better every day, actually. Thank you so much for coming by today." She laughed brightly as she let go of her hug and walked in the house. I followed her in and shut the door behind us as we made our way over to the living room couch. That's when I heard it again. That same horrible scream of the girl that I heard near the factory. "What is it, dear?" my mom asked. I shook my head as I looked towards the noise. "It's nothing. Don't worry about it," I said quickly, trying to quickly shut out that noise. But then it came back. My mom stood up and walked over towards me again and put her hand on my shoulder softly, examining my face carefully before asking me a question. "Is everything all right, dear? You seem very worried about something," she said. Then I remembered. I had forgotten to take my antipsychotic medications. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed your time here. If you did, please consider leaving a like on this video. If you are hungry for more content like this, subscribe to me. Dark Recaps. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.